Pointed to herself. Tom guessed she was telling him about her world. He listened closely. Mira took a small device from her pocket and pressed a button. A tiny image appeared in the air. It showed a beautiful planet with blue seas and green lands. There were tall towers and flying ships. Tom's eyes widened. Your home? He asked. Mira nodded. Home, she said softly. Tom smiled but also felt a little sad. He knew she missed her home. He wanted to help her find a way back, but he didn't know how. Still he was happy she was with him now. The next morning Mira tried to teach Tom some words from her language. She pointed to the sun and said, Zara. Tom repeated the word. She laughed gently. Then she pointed to a flower and said, Luma. Tom said it back. They laughed together when he said it wrong, but he kept trying. Tom also taught Mira more of his language. They shared names for things like tree, bird, and water. Slowly they built a way to understand each other. It was not perfect, but it worked day by day. Tom and Mira became close friends. They worked together, shared meals, and learned from each other. Tom was happy to have her in his life. He had never met anyone like her, but it felt natural to be around her. One afternoon as they sat by the river, Mira looked at Tom and smiled. Friend, she said, placing her hand on his. Tom smiled back and nodded. Friend. It was a simple word, but it meant so much. They had found a connection between their worlds, and that was something special. Many days had passed since Tom found Mira in the valley. Life had become calm and peaceful. Every morning Tom and Mira worked in the garden together. In the afternoons they fixed things around the house. At night they sat by the small fire and told each other stories. Even though they came from different worlds, they understood each other more and more. One evening after dinner Mira sat quietly by the table. She took out a small round device from her pocket. It glowed with a soft blue light. Tom watched her closely. He had seen this device before, but tonight it seemed different. Mira pressed a button and small shapes floated in the air above it. They looked like stars. Mira pointed at the stars and said, Home. Her voice was soft. Tom nodded. You miss your family? He said kindly. Mira looked at him and gave a slow nod. She then pressed another button. Suddenly a light beam came out of the device and formed a picture in the air. It was a tall man with silver hair much like Mira's. He wore a long robe with shining symbols on it. His face looked kind but serious. He spoke in Mira's language and his voice was strong. Mira watched the image with sad eyes. Then she turned to Tom and said, Father? Tom understood. He is your father? He asked. Mira nodded again. King, she added softly. Tom's eyes widened. He had helped a princess. He felt surprised but also a little worried. If her father was a king, maybe he was searching for her. Maybe many people were worried. Tom didn't know what to say. Mira pressed more buttons. New images appeared. There were ships flying in space and strange places that Tom could not imagine. Then Mira showed him a picture of a round object. It looked like a stone with light inside. Mira pointed to it and said, Call help. Tom realized this object could send a message. Maybe it could call their people. He pointed at the object. Where is it? He asked. Mira looked sad and pointed toward the valley. Tom understood the object was still in her ship. It was too far to go at night, so they decided to wait until morning. That night Tom fought a lot. He wanted Mira to find her family, but he also felt sad. If Mira left, he would miss her very much. She had become his best friend. She was kind and gentle. Her smile made him happy. He did not know what life would be like without her. Early the next morning they packed water and food. Tom took his walking stick and Mira carried her small tools. Together they'd walk toward the valley. The path was quiet and the birds sang in the trees. Tom felt the warm sun on his face, but also felt a little heavy in his heart. When they reached the clearing they found Mira's ship just as they had left it. It was still broken, but the lights blinked softly. Mira went inside, while Tom waited outside. After a few minutes Mira came back with a round object in her hands. It glowed faintly. She showed Tom a small button on it and said, Call. Tom nodded. Mira pressed the button carefully. The object made a soft sound and a light shot up into the sky. It was bright but gentle. Then the Light faded and the object went quiet again. Mira looked at Tom and smiled. "They come," she said softly. Tom smiled back, though he felt unsure how long would it take. What would happen next on their way back home? Mira held the object close. She seemed hopeful. Tom was quiet, thinking deeply. He was happy for Mira but also felt a little lonely already. That evening they sat by the fire again. Mira spoke softly, telling Tom about her world. She pointed to the stars and named them. Tom listened, even if he didn't understand every word. He liked the sound of her voice. Suddenly the round object in Mira's hand glowed again. Mira stood up quickly. She looked. Tom sat by the bed watching the strange girl sleep. Her face was calm now and her breathing was soft and steady. He was glad she seemed better, but he still worried she was not from his world. He could see that clearly. Her skin was smooth and light blue, and her silver hair shone even in the dark room. Her clothes were made from a soft, shiny cloth he had never seen before. Everything about her was strange, but she looked peaceful, and Tom knew he had done the right thing by helping her. As the sun rose higher, Tom brought a small bowl of water and a cloth he gently cleaned her face again. The small cut on her forehead was healing. He smiled a little. "You are strong," he said quietly. Later that day Tom made some soup. It was simple, made from vegetables from his garden. He placed the bowl on the table and sat down, thinking about what to do next. Should he tell someone? But who would believe him? No one in his village had ever seen anything like this. They might be afraid. They might even try to take her away. Tom didn't want that. He decided to wait until she woke up. Then he could ask her who she was and what she wanted to do. In the afternoon Tom heard a small sound. He turned quickly and saw the girl moving a little. Her hand reached up to touch her head slowly. Her eyes opened. They were bright green like the leaves in the spring. She looked around the room, confused and worried. Tom stood up slowly and raised his hands to show he was friendly. "It's okay," he said softly, "you are safe." The girl's eyes focused on him. She tried to sit up but seemed too weak. Tom quickly brought her some water. He held the cup gently and helped her drink. She took a few small sips, then looked at him again. Her eyes were softer now, not so afraid. "My name is Tom," he said, pointing to himself. Tom. The girl watched him. Then, after a moment, she pointed to herself and said, "Mirror." Tom smiled. "Mirror," he repeated. She gave a small nod. For a while they sat quietly. Mira looked around the room with curious eyes. She touched the blanket and the wooden bed as if they were strange. Sure, Tom could see she was trying to understand where she was. He spoke slowly and calmly. "You crashed in the valley. I found you," he said, making simple signs with his hands. Mira seemed to understand a little. She looked at him with soft eyes and gave a small smile. It was the first time Tom saw her smile, and it made him feel warm inside. Over the next few days Tom cared for Maya. She was still weak, but she got stronger each day. Tom cooked simple meals and brought her fresh water. Mira tried to speak with him, but they did not know each other's language. Still, they found ways to understand. Tom showed her things around the house. He pointed and said the words slowly. Mira listened carefully and repeated the words in her soft voice. Sometimes Mira laughed when she said something wrong. Tom laughed too. They both smiled often. It was a quiet and peaceful time. One morning Mira stood by the window looking at the sky. Tom stood beside her. She pointed up and said a word he didn't know. Her voice sounded sad. Tom guessed she was thinking about her home. He put his hand on his chest and said, "Home." Then he pointed to her. Mira nodded slowly. She looked far away, as if thinking about something very important. That night they sat by the fire. Mira took out a small device from her pocket. It had soft lights and made a quiet sound. She showed it to Tom. He didn't know what it was, but he smiled and nodded. Mira smiled back. Tom realized something then. Even if they were from different worlds, they could still be friends. He felt a deep respect for Mira. She was brave and kind. He wanted to help her more, but he didn't know how. As the days passed, Tom and Mira grew closer. They worked together in the garden. Mira used her small tools to help fix things on the farm. She was clever and Tom was happy to learn from her. They shared simple meals and quiet Evenings Tom enjoyed hearing Mira's soft voice even if he didn't understand everything. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure: he was glad he had found her. Tom lived in a small village at the edge of a great valley. The valley was deep and wide. People said strange things about it, but Tom liked walking there. It was quiet and he enjoyed the sound of the wind in the trees. One evening as Tom was sitting outside his small house, he saw something bright in the sky. It looked like a star, but it was moving fast. It had a long tail of light behind it. Tom stood up and watched it carefully. The light got bigger and brighter, then it rushed down toward the valley. There was a soft sound, like a distant thump, and then the light disappeared. Tom's heart was beating fast. What was that? He whispered to himself. He had never seen anything like it before. He wanted to go and look right away, but the sky was getting dark. It was not safe to walk in the valley at night, so he decided to wait until morning. That night Tom could not sleep. He kept thinking about the strange light. Was it a falling star? Was it something else? He felt curious and a little nervous, but he was also excited. He wanted to find out what it was. As soon as the sun came up, Tom put on his boots and took his walking stick. He packed a bottle of water and some bread in his bag. Then he started walking toward the valley. The morning air was cool and birds sang in the trees. Tom followed a narrow path down into the valley. He had walked there many times before, but today felt different. After a while Tom noticed something strange. The birds were quiet now. The air felt still. Then he saw smoke rising in the distance. It was thin and white, curling up into the sky. Tom walked faster. Soon he reached a clearing. In the middle of the clearing he saw something he could not believe. There was a large object lying on the ground. It was shiny and smooth, made of silver metal. It was shaped like a long egg, but it had strange lights on it. Some lights were blinking softly. There were marks on the ground where it had landed. Tom stepped closer. The object was not hot. It was cool and silent. Then he saw a door on the side. It was half open. Carefully Tom looked inside. His eyes went wide with surprise. Inside there was a chair and strange tools. He did not understand, but what caught his attention was someone lying on the floor. It was a young woman. She was wearing a silver suit. Her skin was soft blue and her long hair was bright silver. Her eyes were closed and she did not move. Tom's heart beat faster. Was she alive? He looked closer. Her chest was moving slowly. She was breathing, but she looked weak. There was a cut on her forehead and her hands were shaking a little. Without thinking, Tom stepped inside and knelt beside her. "Hello," he said softly. She did not answer. He touched her hand gently. It was cold. "I will help you," Tom whispered. He did not know who she was. He did not know where she came from, but he could not leave her there. She needed help. Carefully Tom lifted her in his arms. She was lighter than he expected. He carried her out of the strange ship and started walking back to his house. The way was not easy. The path was narrow and he had to walk slowly, but Tom did not stop. At last he reached his home. He laid the young woman on his bed and covered her with a blanket. Then he brought water and cleaned the cut on her head. He did not have many medicines, but he did his best. He gave her a little water to drink. She was still asleep, but her breathing became calmer. Tom sat beside her and waited. He looked at her peaceful face and wondered, "Who are you?" he asked softly. She did not answer, but Tom did not mind. He smiled gently and said, "Don't worry, you are safe now outside." The wind moved the leaves in the trees inside. Tom stayed by the girl's side. He did not know it yet, but his life was about to change in a way he never imagined. Each day Mara grew stronger. Tom was glad to see her walk around the small house now. Her steps were slow at first, but soon she moved with more energy. She often stood by the window watching the sky. Tom knew she missed her home, but she never spoke about it much. Sometimes he caught her looking at him with thankful eyes that made him smile. One morning Tom was working in his garden. The sun was warm and the sky was clear. He was pulling out weeds when he heard soft footsteps behind him. It was Mira. She stood quietly for a moment, watching what he was doing. "Help?" she asked in a gentle voice. Tom looked up in surprise. Then he nodded with a smile. "Yes, you can help." Mira knelt beside him. She Copied what he was doing, pulling out the small weeds carefully. Her fingers were quick and gentle. Tom was impressed. They worked side by side without talking much, but it felt peaceful sometimes. Their hands touched by accident and they would both smile shyly. After a while Tom showed her how to plant seeds. He made small holes in the ground and placed seeds inside. Mara watched closely and then did the same. She was careful and made perfect rows. Tom gave her a thumbs up. Mira laughed softly, a sweet sound like soft music. Later that day they sat by the table in Tom's kitchen. Tom brought out a few simple tools and pieces of wood. He was fixing a broken stool. Mara watched for a moment, then opened a small box she had carried from her ship. Inside were tiny tools Tom had never seen before. They shone brightly and made a soft humming sound when she touched them. She took one of the tools and pointed at the broken stool. Tom nodded, curious. Mira pressed a button and the tool made a quiet noise. She held it near the crack in the wood and Tom, surprised, the crack closed slowly. It looked like magic. Tom's mouth opened in shock. Wow, he said. Mira smiled and showed him how to hold the tool. Tom tried it carefully and it worked. He laughed in wonder. Amazing, he said. From then on Mira helped Tom fix many things around the house. They repaired broken chairs, a loose door, and even the old fence outside. Mira was clever with her tools and Tom learned quickly from her. They worked together every day and Tom found himself looking forward to each new task. At night they sat by the small fire. Tom told me stories about his village. He used simple words and pointed to things as he spoke. Mira listened carefully, her green eyes full of interest. Sometimes she repeated the words after him. Her voice was soft but clear. Tom liked hearing her say his language. One evening Mara pointed at the sky and spoke in her own language. She made a circle with her hands and then at Tom with bright eyes. Soon, she said. Tom nodded slowly. The message had been received. Mira's people were coming. Tom knew things were going to change, but he also knew he had done the right thing. He smiled at Mira and said, "Friend." Mira smiled back and placed her hand gently on his friend. She repeated, "No matter what happened next, Tom and Mira would always remember this time." It was a simple friendship, but it meant everything. The next morning was bright and warm. Tom woke up early. He sat outside his house looking at the sky. It was quiet, but he knew something was about to happen. Mira sat beside him. She held the round device close, waiting for another signal. Her green eyes were full of hope. Tom could feel her excitement. They had breakfast together. Tom made fresh bread and soup. Mira smiled as she ate. She was getting better at using Tom's spoon, though she still sometimes held it upside down. They both laughed about it. After breakfast Mira stood up and pointed to the sky. "Soon," she said softly. Tom nodded. "Yes, soon," he replied. He tried to smile, but inside he felt a little sad. He was happy for Mira. She would see her family again, but when she left he would miss her. As the sun rose higher, the round device in Mira's hand began to glow. A soft sound came from it like a bell. Mira's eyes lit up. She looked at Tom and said, "They come." Tom stood up quickly. "Now?" he asked. Mira nodded. She pointed toward the valley. They both began walking. Tom held his walking stick. Mira walked beside him holding the round device. It guided them with soft lights. After some time they reached the clearing where Mira's ship had crashed. The area was still quiet. Tom looked around but saw nothing strange. Then Mira pointed to the sky. "Look," she said. Tom followed her finger far above. He saw something moving. It was a light. At first it was small like a star, but it came closer, growing larger and brighter. Soon Tom saw it was a ship. It was silver and smooth. It made no loud noise, just a gentle hum. The ship slowly came down. It floated above the ground and then stopped. A door opened on the side and a soft ramp came down. Mara smiled. "My people," she whispered. Tom watched as a tall figure came out of the ship. He wore clothes that shone like the stars. His hair was silver like mirrors and his eyes were kind. He walked slowly toward them. Mara ran forward. "Father," she called. Tom stood still watching the tall Man opened his arms and Mira hugged him tightly. They spoke in their own language. Words Tom could not understand, but he could see Mira's face. She was happy and her father looked happy too. After a while Mira turned and waved to Tom. She walked back with her father beside her. "This is Tom," she said softly. The tall man looked at Tom and smiled. "Thank you," he said slowly in Tom's language. Tom was surprised. "You speak my language?" he asked. The man nodded. "A little. Mira taught me," he said. Tom smiled. "I am glad she is safe," he said kindly. Mira's father looked at Tom with great respect. "You save my daughter," he said. "You are brave and kind." Tom shook his head. "I only helped a friend," he said simply. Mira smiled at Tom. "Friend," she repeated. Then something surprising happened. Mira's father took out a small box. It was silver and smooth. He opened it and showed Tom a beautiful stone. Inside it glowed softly with many colors. "This is for you," Mira's father said, "a gift from our people." Tom looked at the stone, unsure. "For me?" he asked. "Yes," Mira's father said. "You are now a friend of our kingdom." Tom took the stone carefully. It was warm and light in his hand. He smiled. "Thank you," he said. Mira looked happy. She held Tom's hand for a moment and said, "Always, friend." Tom nodded. "Always." Soon it was time to say goodbye. Mira walked up the ramp with her father. She turned one last time and waved. Tom waved back. The ship slowly rose into the sky. It glowed bright and then disappeared into the clouds. Tom stood there for a while holding the glowing stone. He smiled to himself. He was glad Mira was safe and he was glad he had met her. He walked back home feeling proud. The stone glowed softly in his hand. It was a simple gift, but it meant something very special. That night Tom sat by the fire and looked at the stars. He wondered if Mira was looking at the same stars from her world. He smiled. He knew he would never forget her and maybe one day she would come back. Many days passed after Mira left. Tom's life returned to its simple ways. He worked in his garden, cared for his animals and walked by the river, but something inside him had changed. He often thought of Mira. He missed her laugh, her gentle voice, and the way they worked together. Every night he looked up at the stars wondering where she was. Tom still had the glowing stone Mira's father gave him. It sat on his table in a wooden box. Sometimes Tom opened the box and looked at the stone. It shone with soft colors just like the day he received it. He smiled each time he saw it. It reminded him of his special friend from the stars. One evening Tom was sitting outside his house. The sky was clear and the stars were bright. He noticed something strange. A glowing stone inside the house was shining brighter than usual. He stood up and went inside to check. When he opened the box, the stone glowed with a warm golden light. Then slowly small lights floated up from it and formed a shape in the air. Tom's eyes grew wide. It was Mira, not in person but as a light image. She smiled warmly. "Hello, Tom," Mira's voice said softly. Tom was surprised and happy. "Mira," he said aloud, even though he knew it was only a message. Mira's message continued, "I hope you are well, my friend. I am safe with my family, but I miss our time together on your world." Tom smiled and sat down to listen. Mira's voice went on. "My father was very thankful to you. He said I could visit you again when the time is right. I promised him I would. One day I will return. Until then, look at the stars and think of me." The image slowly faded and the stone returned to its soft glow. Tom felt warm inside. He knew Mira had not forgotten him. She wanted to come back someday. He placed the stone back in its box carefully and whispered, "I will wait." Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Tom kept busy with his work, but he always hoped each night that Mira might return soon. One sunny morning Tom woke to a strange sound outside. It was soft like music, but it came from the sky. He quickly went out and looked up. He saw a small silver ship flying slowly toward his house. His heart began to beat faster. The ship landed quietly in the clearing near his home. The door opened and Tom stood still waiting. A familiar figure walked out. It was Mira. She wore a long white robe with silver designs. Her silver hair shone in the sunlight and her green eyes sparkled with joy. Tom walked toward her. With a big smile he called. Mira smiled back. Tom, she said happily. They stood for a moment just looking at each other, then Mira stepped closer and held out her hands. Tom took them gently. They both smiled. It felt like no time had passed since they last met. You came back, Tom said softly. I promised